Hey everyone, welcome to another PTR tournament VOD. This was the Korean Open Cup, I believe, played 6 or 7 days ago from the point of this recording, and it was played on a mod that basically simulates the patch. So PTR, public test realm, something you have to download to actually play. We didn't all just move on to that. They added a mod to it, so I believe that means we're not going to get any of the game heart additions. So things like worker kill popping up or the upgrade timers, anything like that. But in exchange, we get to see more of what the patch is going to look like. So still, TBD, I suppose, on when the patch is actually going to be released. Current guesses are sometime early January, along with maybe a season change, right? But yeah. We get to see a little bit of a preview of what the patch changes are going to make, well, TVZ in this case, look like. So I did some of the European Open Cup. Gotta say, it was a lot of PBTs, and you didn't really get to see a lot of the patch changes impact that, because by the time we got to Ghost, games were already decided, and I would say that Ghost might have been one of the bigger ones. But this is TVZ, and I do believe that, especially as we're on beta C between these two guys, we're going to get a longer TVZ. We're actually going to be able to see some of the changes that are going to be impactful more than just like, oh yeah, okay, that was changed, okay, haha, let's move on. So I'll be pointing out some of those minuscule changes that really don't matter perhaps as much as people think, or everyone agrees basically. It's like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And then I'll point out especially times when the changes could have directly impacted something in a medium to large way. Now I do personally believe that this matchup, its late game, is what's going to be affected the most, but of course everyone's been talking about maybe like the Raven rework in TVT, as well as some concerns over, I guess, other portions of the matchup, but in any matchup whatsoever. So yeah, I'm sure everyone has their concerns. Personally, I just believe that late game TVC is going to see the biggest changes, but I'm going to be learning with you guys. I have not seen this yet. The bottom left, it is Dark. Top right, it is Cure. So pretty epic players. Have not seen them play against each other. This is brand new to me too. So if we get a long game, great. Hopefully we get to see exactly the changes that I'm anticipating. So the ghost snipe, basically. But maybe even the ultra change, little babby ultras. They want to diet. They're a little skinnier. They're a little more effective as far as offensive units at this point. But it all remains to be determined, right? So I hope we get to see it. Right now, we are setting up for a very long game. Cure. Not just going for a 3cc build, but going so on location is exceptionally greedy. I mean, that's kind of crazy. Now, the Overlord could have been over here, and that's why Cure's Marine is over here. And so it would not have seen this third. It would have maybe tried going into the main base to see if it was a starport, to see maybe the edge of a third CC, something like that. And it could have been over here, which is actually currently going towards, wow, this could not be more perfect. And then it also, again, would go into the main base and say, okay, it's a third CC, and assume that the third CC is in location, because there's really no other way that Terrans are going to be playing 9 times out of 10. 99% of these games with a third CC are going to have the third CC in the safe location of the main base. So, just a handful of links could have really ruined Cure's day. He's only getting 2 Hellions as well. This is actually the most greedy a Terran player can ever be. This is actually a fact. Sometimes we talk about, I guess maybe in the past there was times where you would go 1 Rax 3cc, but I don't know when the last time I saw that was. This has got to be the greediest. On location, third command center, only 2 Hellions, using that reactor instead for the faster second barracks with this build, turning it into a 3cc 211. But it's just so insanely greedy. 2 Hellions and a Reaper do not stop 10lings even, right? Like maybe if you got perfect conditions and perfect control, and we're going to assume that Cure has very good control, but even still, just because, the shots are so erratic when it comes to Hellions, the Reaper would be the most consistent thing. So I guess throw in like a good grenade, and it's feasible, but then talk about 20lings. No, like 2 Hellions are not going to stop that. And the Marine production is not that high. It's ramping up, but it's not that high. So, it's very possible the third CC would at least have to be lifted. Dark has seen it at this point, by the way. He went over and checked and was probably like, you got me. And just these, no reason to try and punish it now. Because at this point, the punish really would be only, you know, forcing it to lift temporarily. The Marine count is high enough that it would help against something that was somewhat committed, but not fully committed. So, unless Dark wanted to make like 50 lings. And even then, tuck those Marines into a corner. Not going to do a whole lot. So unless he had a Baneling Nest, there wasn't much going to be done here. So Kier, what has he gotten scouting on, right? He did both the Reaper, he did scout the 3rd hatchery, and then kind of skedaddled. So, you know, again, it also, something else that could kill this is a Roach Rush. Maybe the 3rd CC is done, so again, it maybe just lifts. But that's kind of the tricky thing about these super fast buildings. Like, obviously, there's the downside of investing so much to something that's not helping you, and certainly not helping you to defend. But the upside is kind of like, if you get it settled, there's a lot to be gained from that. So sometimes the faster you get it, it is better. The actual 2-1-1 portion of this build has commenced, but Dark is going to defend simply with Queens. We have 3 Lings on the field. 24 are about to pop, though, so if Kier wanted to dive on that, he would have made a mistake. I mean, he might have gotten a couple of Queen deaths, but then they would have been target firing the medevac, and this doesn't sound like a very good time. I'm still so shocked by this 3rd CC, man. That's crazy fast. Yeah, it's the same thing for Nexus and hatcheries, too, though, to a degree. Again, like, kind of get set up, they kind of, you know, you get rewarded for having it set up. So the Nexus finishes, you have Shield Battery Overcharge, right? The hatchery finishes, you have Creep, so you're kind of rewarded for getting something a bit faster in a certain sense. So finally, these Marines are going to have to actually pick up and leave. We have fighting units on the field aside from Queens. Cleared up some creep, but not a whole lot. Have we seen any of the balance changes already in effect? Technically, a couple. So we do have creep spreading a bit faster from the hatcheries, and hatcheries having more creep to spread. The sight range of creep tumors was reduced by 1, which means that they still see a whole lot, but just a little bit less. If we do see a sensor tower, which I assume eventually we'll see a sensor tower, that also got its range reduced. And then otherwise, I'm not sure I'm missing too much. Dark's gonna dive towards Hive, was setting up a Baneling run by, but that's not gonna work out. Kier actually heading that direction, is able to see it. Dark's gonna try the other pathway to try and get the jump on Kier, and Kier has nothing scouting that. Now, he is preparing for a run by. Tank is not yet sieged, but almost perfectly timed. And yeah, that will do the trick for now. And Dark has this attack to worry about. 2 tanks cleverly placed. It's gonna get an easy cancel on that would-be 5th base. This also might contribute to some macro problems. Oh, nope, shouldn't. Dark is definitely one of the most freewheeling Zergs when it comes to building macro hatcheries. He doesn't really, I don't know. Either he admits his own faults, or is just, you know, unabashed, more so than other Zergs. But where most of the Zergs would even try the 4th, 5th at the same time to kind of get that kind of almost macro hatchery. With the 5th, he just admits that he's not gonna, you know, probably not gonna get both up at the same time, which is definitely true. He didn't get the 5th base up at the same time, but not just 1 macro hatch, 2. So he should not have any larva problems. That's, yeah, that's not something a lot of those Zergs are doing. 4th Command Center is going to be killed, not canceled. Kira's not having a super great time defending against all of this. 20 workers do go down. So we do have the Game Heart mod, which either they worked something in that I wasn't alerted to, or they are playing on the old version, which, to be honest, guys, is completely possible. Let's wait and see if we get anything very noticeable as far as changes go, and that might be the Ultraless Cavern. If the Ultras look a little small, then the patch is in effect. Very good then. If they aren't, well, then they might have played on it incorrectly, which does happen occasionally. Kira is able to take down not just a 5th, get the cancel there, but also takes down the 4th. So at the very least, guys, are going to get a good game of StarCraft. And I am waiting for the first Ultra. Ultra's Cavern is on the way. Upgrade is on the way. And just prioritizing a Viper right now. I would usually not be so tense waiting for Ultras if it wasn't for this question that I need answered. Sensor Tower would also be slightly reduced in range, but I honestly could not tell you if that is or is not. I don't pay attention that much to the circles. She's waiting on that creep thread. Wow. Let's wait for the ultras to pop out. We have our typical setup from the Terran. Attack to the left, attack to the right, build up in the middle. But Kira did take a very bad engagement. I mean, 30 seconds is not going very well for him, having his 4th killed, having 18 plus SCVs killed. I mean, that was a successful run by despite Kira's attempt to stop it. But I guess it's not so far gone that this is out of Kira's control. It just is one of those games that could very easily, very quickly snowball. Where the supplies maybe don't look that bad, but you look at the pacing, look at the technology, you look at the relentlessness of the Zerg player, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, they're gonna take control of this one. That's not had happened though, so maybe Kira's totally fine. I mean, he's still stuck in this position. Dark's having a really tough time getting rid of it, even though he does have a Viper. It is soaking up energy elsewhere. So it has to come all the way across town. The run by is going to be denied by Kira, and here comes the rescue Viper. Gonna abduct those tanks off the ledge, and it kind of looked like it did that simultaneously. So they added a bit of a delay. Whoop, Baneling stuck with the Marine. They added a bit of a delay to the Viper is being able to basically double abduct, which I don't know if I really saw that in effect there. And the ultras are about to pop, so I think the ultras, the new ones, are that different. They really are. So I think that'll be the first time that I'm 100% sure. We haven't seen Hydras, you know, we don't really notice the creep spread interval of buildings. I haven't noticed Broodlings, which have their time changed. Yeah, nothing like that. Come on, Ultras. How big are you? Are you a big boy? Oh, I could have sworn an Ultra just popped up. Yeah, they look small. Right? That's small. So maybe the Vipers were... Because the Viper change was really small. So the Vipers had a 0.71 second cast finish time to abduct. So it has to wait a little bit longer to get that second abduct in. And it might have been that case. It is such a small change that unless I had that side-by-side comparison, which you can find on Twitter, actually. Someone set up a bunch of GIFs comboed with each other. You might not really be able to tell, but still a nice change, specifically for, I would say, more like late game PvZ, but yeah, regardless. The other thing that could have told me what patch we're on is also the Ghost, which we haven't actually gotten to yet. So I think that will happen. Kira's building an extra 4 command centers, all right? Like, we already had to set up for the macro game the 3cc opener, but hey, you could turn a 3cc opener into an ARAX only, right? A real confirmation happened when the 4th was down, but then it was killed. But it's not like you can really all in that fashion against the Zerg player. Say like, oh, I guess I'm screwed, pull the SCVs. Doesn't really work against Banelings. And so we had a more drawn-out process to the 4th base. Oh, looks like there's a very good parasitic bomb. But the 4th base is down. And now the extra command centers are not just adding, of course, economy, eventually, but they're also adding SimCity. And this is where the Ultra change is most impactful. So Ultras are always pretty good. They basically did their job when it came to defense. When it came to taking a fight out in the open as well was okay. But what they really sucked at was continuing the chase and then engaging into SimCity. That was where we would see almost all the throws, really. Sometimes Zerg players get overconfident and only go Ultras, and there's a problem with pure Ultra as well, so we'd see throws in that sense too. But most of the time, it was because Ultras were not very nimble. That is the best word I can think of using. By reducing their size and then changing what they've called, I believe, range slop is what they refer to it as. Yeah, range slop. The size helps them move with these Lings and Banelings and also maneuver between SimCity setups. But then also the range slop is from when the unit it's trying to attack can step away so it misses. All right, so if you ever... someone pointed out that Hellions have a pretty big impact with that, right? Or was that the one that was impacted? No, that was actually damage point. Never mind. So range slop is a bit different. So range slop was, I don't think there's a better example that I can think of right off the bat. But we're going to have an engagement, so I'll talk about that in 1 second. Big old Ling, Baneling, Ultra Flood. Little Babby Ultras coming in here. Ghosts are going to be different as well, but we'll get into that again after the engagement. Now, they're being dragged through some Sim City into the Planetary Fortress, and that is a lot of Baneling still left over. Unfortunately, not enough splash on the front side to cut that number, so they are used to kill the Planetary. No other real way of using them. Continue chasing wasn't going to, yield much, but then it also is worth, because Dark has such a safe retreat. All this creep spread, all the bases he could retreat to, a couple of bases that he could frankly give up without being too far behind, and of course the big remax that happens with Zerg players who also are in control of their larva, which so many hatcheries at this point, macro hatcheries from the get-go. Yeah, it's not going to be a problem. So anyways, the range slop. Yeah, I can't think of a better example. The Howling one was different, but the range slop is just, yeah, if you've ever seen Ultras try and attack and then Marauder dodges away and it's like, oh, it didn't do any damage, that's been changed. So the Ultra now should have more, I guess you could say, hits, more guaranteed hits. It's going to take a little bit of a faster movement from the thing it's attacking to actually escape being hit. So Ultras got buffed. If that's really, you're looking for the dumbest TLDR, that is it. Ultras got buffed. They look a little bit different. They look weaker, but they're actually buffed. Now all of them are gone. It's just about the Ling Baneling. Another Planetary is going to go down. Command Center could easily go down, and indeed it does. SCV is also, of course, going to be slaughtered. And Cure is just not able to stand his ground. I think what's really missing here is splash. Cure's Widowmine count and tank count have never been particularly impressive. I mean, 20 plus Widowmines have been made, so we're going on 23 Widowmines and a 16.5 in a game. That doesn't sound that bad for me. That doesn't actually, but then of course, where have they been positioned? How fortunate have their hits been? Have they always been burrowed before the attack initiated? That I have actually not been keeping track of, while also trying to explain some of the PTR differences. So that's maybe if all 20 were literally out and perfectly situated, I'd say is a very difficult engagement path for the Zerg, but clearly they have not been enough. Here has always been forced to retreat, always seemingly been reduced down to nothing but bio, which, an overwhelming number of Ling Baneling units are going to be able to nibble on. A couple of Ultras just to anchor by the looks of things, perhaps Dark. Also doing us a favor a little bit as a, player. They want to win the money that's on the line here for these open cups, but they think there's some of them that, are actually interested to see if the changes are actually going to change anything. So that could be a reason why we also see Ultras. Because frankly, if a Zerg player was only going Ling, Baneling, Viper, I don't think that'd be incorrect. But the Ultras, we get to see them. We get to approve of this as being PTR. And we get to see that they are more nimble. I mean, I think we all can agree on that. The Ultras have not been the highlight. We've seen big Baneling explosions like we're used to in late game TVZ, so that's mostly where our eyes are drawn to. And again, Ultras by their lonesome have never been particularly impressive. But I think we can see that they are more in line with the rest of the ground-based Zerg army. Might be the best way to put it. And if you've ever seen the comparison again, someone on Twitter, I think a lot of us retweeted it. I forget the name, really should have remembered. Anyways, if you've seen the direct comparison, Ultras are now even slightly smaller than Ravagers, I believe, or like similar size. Kier's gonna tap out of money, down in supply. Yeah, he's been dead for a little while. So yeah, not the most exciting late game, but we did get to see the late game TVZ. And was Kira's severe loss, because it really did not seem to ever go his way, because of the patch? I don't think so. I think more so late game TVZ has been a bit of a head scratcher for Terran the last month plus. We're a long ways away from the month or two where Maru made Ghost look really overpowered and Zergs are the ones scratching their head. So yeah, I just think it's late game TVZ still being very troublesome for Terran players. And obviously his transition to late game was interrupted with that fourth base being killed. So a bunch of reasons aside from the Ultras being a little bit better, and that was really the only buff, I suppose, that Dark was using. So yeah, I don't think that made Dark 100 times better. For the Terran, what could make them a lot worse? Well, the Ghost, steady targeting cancel if the target moves more than 13.5 range away. from the ghost while casting. So basically the ghost has 10 range to actually cast the damn thing, but then if a unit runs outside of 13.5, then it won't go off, right? It'll be canceled. So that was nerfed as well for the Terran side of things. And then their EMP and stuff got changed, but that's not really impactful in this game. Could be impactful in TVZ, but not this one. So I don't know if I saw too many units running away, personally. The Zerg seemed to be pretty committed at all times. I don't even know if we really saw that many snipes. But yeah, that didn't really make Cure worse. Sensor tower range apparently was reduced. Yeah, I would not really, I could not tell based off the minimap. I'm not that observant. But apparently it was. So that was a little bit of a nerf to the guy. And then that was it. That was the only things we saw used. We didn't see any attempt at a Banshee or Cyclone Opener or a Raven to help clear up creep spread. But, so yeah, if you're going to sit here and tell me that the Ultra buff and the Ghost nerf are the reasons that Dark won this game, I don't believe you. But the jury's still out. That's part of the reason we're watching all these games. So they must have actually gotten a mod that gave Gameheart and the patch, which I don't believe is available to us in Europe. So they are special. But yeah, I'm glad to see that this was in fact on the patch. It just didn't seem to affect very much. Let's watch game number 2 and see what happens there. Game number 2 on Stargazers. In the top right, we have Dark. And in the top left, it is Cure. So last game did not see much of an impact as far as the patch goes. I will now be under the assumption that they are correctly applying the patch to them and that they are going to be working with all the nerfs and buffs. As far as the early game to mid game goes, really the only thing that's impacting these two players is going to be the creep spread change, or range, sorry. The creep spread of the buildings of the hatchery, lair, and hive has been buffed ever so slightly. Not explained in the patch notes, but basically everyone agrees that the purpose of that was to nerf proxy raxes. So buff Zerg against proxy raxes, which, was that really necessary? You guys can debate in the comments. But for me, I don't actually think it was all that necessary. The times of which we see the 2-3 racks win might be high when we do see them, but we do not see them all that often. I think it's also kind of an important tool to occasionally slap the hand of the Zerg and say, no, you gotta do a pull first every now and again. But obviously they, whoever was designing this and talking about it disagreed and thought that it'd be nicer to have a bit more of a better chance to hold against an unscouted 2 or 3 racks, which, all right, that is what it is. So does it affect much else? Not really. It affects anything that happens in the extreme early game. But as far as the mid and late game, how often does a hatchery finishing and the amount of creep that it pushes out actually determine anything? Not a lot, not usually. Some of the conversations I've had with Twitch chat have been like proxy hatches. You can't see or you can move the creep spread farther. If you get a proxy hatch and a queen out, right, and you're planting all those creep tumors, that's really annoying. You plan a little bit farther. And then you can also start your like spine crawler rush, for instance, a little bit closer sooner. But that's not really a big issue. It's proxy hatches in like any matchup. Occasionally happens, but in the pro scene, there's like only 1 or 2 people who even do it. Creep tumor cooldown. This was quite heavily criticized from, I suppose, the Terran side and any influence the Terran streamers might have on the community. That apparently the fact that they made creep spreading less effective, so the cooldown of the creep tumor, he loses the Reaper. That's not good. Especially because Kira is once again going for a 3cc. Well, hopefully Dark's not roach rushing him. Yeah, so the creep tumor, its cooldown is increased from 11 to 13, so it takes more time to start spreading creep again. It doesn't actually affect even the literal top tier Zergs. They aren't perfect. They aren't to a second or even 2 seconds or even 3 seconds, I think, of the creep tumor being off cooldown. Technically, I would assume that from the very first one, they are pretty on point, but then it already starts to see like less and less perfection after the second or third one. So, and as the game gets heated, right? So that apparently doesn't really change much. That's not really a Zerg nerf. Like, very technically it is, but nah. Roaches again from Dark. He is a roach player often. Trying to click on it. Where is it? There you go. And then the sight range of the creep is such a small change that I kind of forgot that it was even there. But one less range for these creep tumors to see what's incoming. I don't think that's impactful, honestly. And then that's it. And then, you know, if we do see roaches, we might see the Ravager nerf. That is the cocoon forming time for the Ravager. And since we are going roaches in this game, I 100% believe we're going to see Ravagers. So Dark, unless he kills Kira right off the bat. Kira is going 3cc, but then into still a fairly fast engagement force, not just harassment. He is going into Marauder Hellbat. There's the armory. Because of Viking first, so the Overlord's not going to be able to see this. Dark is not so in the dark. I had to make the pun. He does see the 3rd CC. He knows the opening build, but he does not know the follow-up. So is it that 2-1-1 follow-up that Kira did last game? Is it a 1-1-1 into Banshees that you see a lot of players do? That would be very safe against what Dark is currently doing, going for a kind of early, but not super early roach push. Or is it doing this? Now the interesting thing about this is that, well, you might be looking at the setup here for Kira and saying, well, that's probably good, right? He's got Marauders, which are great against roaches, and he's got Hellbats, which are, you know, at least chonky. They can kind of provide that brick wall to let the Marauders do their thing, and they can be healed as well. So they you know, they're providing a lot of health. The problem is Hellbats still don't do a lot of damage, and Marauders are not plentiful in this. So, you know, I definitely prefer Dark's position. Now, if Dark only had 5 roaches, and that's very different, but Dark is actually going for his own early game all in, and so he has just more units. And he's also got those Ravagers, which took a little bit more time to form, but are still in time to deal with this. They really find each other in the middle of the map, making this, you know, kind of awkward, but also on, like, even footing for both of them as well. So, but it looks like just that sheer numbers problem I was talking about earlier really came into effect. If the layers were perfect, if Kira's Hellbats engage the Lings because Dark didn't control his stuff, then the Marauders can take out the Roaches. That'd be perfect, but that's not how that went. Dark could control, Dark could avoid, Dark could actually use the right units against the right units, and now is going to continue on with his engagement, of which Kira really doesn't have really the right stuff. It might seem like he has the counter to everything that Dark has, but it's not actually how it's going to go down. Just the number of units doesn't really match up against what the Zerg can throw at you. It might have been different with a little bit of advanced notice, with a little bit of a wall, and perhaps even just one bunker. But Kira, caught out in the middle like that, and did what he could. Dark could just do a little bit more. So, super long first game that was quite one-sided at the end of it, and ultimately one-sided. Things could have gone a little bit weird, maybe with a base trade or something like that, but ultimately one-sided cheese in game number 2. Quick and easy, best of 3, 2-0 for Dark, who would move on in this tournament. We did not see any of the patch changes. The Ravager, that's right, we saw the Ravager, but that didn't even impact the engagement. Yeah, so not the most impactful. I still say that late game TVZ is where it's going to be most noticeable. But just that last late game TVZ, we didn't really get to see it. We'd love to see some changes in the mid game of this matchup. Perhaps the reintroduction of the Hydralisk, which was never completely out of the picture, but, you know, most people going Ling Bane. Or Roach Ravager Ling Bane. Or just Roach Ravager. Anyways, the Hydras, you know, they're big for a while, and then they kind of fell off. Perhaps now with their buffs, they could come back in the matchup a little bit more. And then I guess for the Terran side of things, we are curious to see if the Raven rework would make it more ideal to go for it for the creep spread removal. Currently, no. Kira did not even try and go for it. But maybe as the patch continues to be tested, it'll be different. We'll see. Let me know your guys' thoughts, and I'll be back with more of the patch. Hopefully finding some people who are really trying their best to basically experiment with it, to try it out, and maybe even to abuse it. Because the more that someone finds that they can abuse something, the quicker we know whether it is too much of a buff or not. So it just currently, with the competition still at its core being competition, we're going to see a lot of the same. We're going to see a lot of the tried and true, and then maybe some changes later down the line as far as the meta goes. But yeah. Looking forward to more from this tournament, as well as the North American one. Got all of the replays, so I'll be back with more tomorrow. So I'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching. Make sure to follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and watch more StarCraft. Bye-bye.